30 people dead. Gubbio, Italy. Year 1220. For weeks fear was stronger than the cold. The city gates remained closed day and night. The walls, which for centuries had protected the people from human invasions, now seemed fragile against a threat they did not understand. The bells did not ring for celebration. They did not ring for the market. They did not ring for weddings. They tolled only to announce funerals, one after another, without rest. The children stopped playing in the cobbled streets. Laughter disappeared. Mothers kept them indoors, clinging to their skirts, with fear etched in their eyes. The fields were abandoned. The fertile land waited for hands that did not dare to go out. The wheat was lost. The vines withered. The roads deserted. No one traveled. No one traded. No one strayed from the walls. Because beyond the safe limit of the city, something lurked. A gigantic wolf roamed the nearby forests. It was not a common wolf. It did not flee at the sight of humans. It was not content with animals. It attacked people, shepherds who tended their flocks, peasants who went out at dawn, women who gathered firewood, children who had strayed only a few steps. No one was safe. The bodies returned shattered, sometimes incomplete, sometimes unrecognizable. And the most terrifying thing was not just the death, it was the way. The wolf did not attack out of hunger. It did not always take the bodies. It did not seem to be satiated. It attacked with fury, with excessive violence, as if something else drove it. The witnesses spoke in a low voice. They said that its eyes shone even during the day, that its size exceeded that of any known animal. That, upon seeing it, the heart froze before the body could react. The inhabitants began to call it the monster of the valley. Some said it was a punishment from God. Others that it was a beast sent by the devil. Still others that the forest had spawned something unnatural due to hunger and abandonment. But everyone agreed on one thing. If someone went out alone, they did not return. The city entered a kind of voluntary confinement, a siege imposed by terror. The nights became endless. Every howl that came from the hills froze the blood. Every noise outside the walls was interpreted as the prelude to another death. The bravest men tried to organize hunts. They went out armed with spears, swords, traps. Some did not return. Others returned injured or broken inside. Fear ceased to be individual. It became collective. Gubbio was no longer a living city. It was a community that survived waiting for its turn. And when it seemed that there was no hope left, when hunger began to kill almost as much as the wolf, when even the strongest began to pray not for protection, but for a quick death, a man arrived. Without weapons, without soldiers, without promises of violence, only with a worn tunic and a faith that knew no fear. The first survivors swore the same thing. It was not an ordinary wolf. It was not just bigger than normal. It was unnatural, too big, too aggressive, too aware of what it was doing. They said its eyes did not reflect light. They emitted it, an unsettling glow, visible even in broad daylight. Its footprints were marked in the mud, as if they belonged to another creature, deeper, wider, heavier. Some claimed they looked like bear tracks. Others said that no known beast could leave marks like that. But the most terrifying thing was not its size, it was its behavior. The wolf did not attack out of hunger. It killed and left. It did not devour its victims. It did not flee after the attack. It showed no fear of men or weapons. It attacked in broad daylight. It attacked near the roads. It attacked even when there were witnesses, as if it wanted to be seen, as if it wanted to sow terror. The shepherds stopped going out at dawn. The farmers abandoned the fields. The women no longer went to the river alone. The children simply stopped going out. Soon, fear turned into panic. Mothers slept with their children embraced. Men guarded the walls with torches lit all night. Every sound from the forest made the entire city tremble. And then the rumors began. It is not an animal, some whispered. It is a punishment. It is a demon. It is evil taking shape. Faith and reason were beginning to break. Because when fear lasts too long, when death becomes commonplace, the human heart stops looking for explanations and just wants to survive. Gubbio was no longer a city. It was a fortress besieged by terror. The local government could no longer ignore the horror. When fear no longer fit in the houses, and hunger began to kill slower than the wolf, the authorities acted. They gathered the best hunters in the region, men who had spent their lives in the forest, who knew every path, every cave, every track in the snow, veterans of big game hunting. Accustomed to bears, boars, common wolves, they were armed to the teeth, crossbows drawn, spears reinforced with iron, sharpened blades, steel traps, dogs trained to track and attack. They left Gubbio amidst nervous applause and hurried prayers. "This time it will not be back," they said. "No animal can stand against us." But the forest did not respond with victory. Days passed. No one returned, until at dawn of a gray morning the city gates opened slowly. Not everyone returned. Only a few, crawling, covered in blood, with eyes widened in terror, some wounded, others in shock, one unable to speak. The dogs were gone. "It is not a wolf," one managed to say, trembling. "It does not move like an animal. It attacked us head on. It did not run. It hunted us." They said that the arrows did not seem to stop it, that it jumped between the spears, that it attacked with brutal intelligence, that the dogs trained to kill howled and fled. 5 men died in minutes. Silence fell for Gubbio like a sentence. Then came the last human hope. Soldiers, men trained for war, veterans hardened in real battles, accustomed to killing and seeing death. They arrived with armor, long swords, heavy shields. They laughed at the fear of the people. "A wolf is not an enemy," they said. "This will be over soon." They entered the forest, and the forest closed again. Days later, fewer returned. The captain did not return, nor 2 of the best men. Only blood, distant screams remembered in nightmares. And the final certainty: nothing worked. Neither weapons, nor traps, nor experience, nor strength. The forest returned silence and death. The gates of Gubbio closed again. This time, not to protect themselves, but because no one knew anymore what to do. Gubbio was doomed. With the walls closed, another enemy arrived, a silent one, slow, implacable: hunger. The fields were left beyond the reach of human hands. The seeds were not sown. The harvests were lost under the frost. The shepherds no longer went up to the hills. The cattle, abandoned, died of cold, or were devoured in the darkness of the forest. Firewood began to run out. The ovens went out. The nights became longer, or more cruel. In the houses, weeping replaced laughter. The children begged for bread that no longer existed. The elderly coughed in frozen rooms, wrapped in insufficient blankets. Each dawn brought less hope than the last. The city, protected from the wolf by its walls, began to die from within. The fear no longer came only from the forest. It came from the empty stomach, from the cold that seeped into the bones, from the certainty that, even without attacks, winter would do its work. Gubbio did not only fear the wolf, it feared disappearing. And it was then, when there were no longer any human solutions, when weapons had failed, when strength had been defeated, that someone spoke a name, not that of a soldier, not that of a hunter, the name of a man without a sword, without an army, without protection. A man who believed that even in the most feared beast, a spark of God could still dwell. Saint Francis of Assisi. Francisco's arrival disconcerted everyone. While the city prepared to withstand another attack, he walked without haste, as if the danger did not exist. The guards looked at him with distrust. Some thought he was crazy, others that he would not survive an hour outside the walls. But the podists spoke to him urgently, listing the dead, describing wounds, repeating the same word over and over: monster. But Francisco did not interrupt. He listened in silence, with a serious face, eyes downcast, like someone who not only hears, but understands. When the story ended, he did not ask for soldiers. He did not ask for weapons. He did not ask for permission to hunt. He asked for something unthinkable. "Take me to him." The hall fell silent. Someone laughed nervously. Another muttered a prayer. A woman burst into tears. "Father, no one who has gone out has returned." They warned him. That wolf kills without reason. Not even steel stops it. Francisco calmly raised his gaze. Every creature that attacks without reason is a creature that suffers, and suffering is not overcome with more violence. Those words made them uncomfortable. For Gubbio, the wolf was not a symbol, nor a metaphor. It was a death sentence that roamed every night. But Francisco did not speak like a philosopher. He spoke like someone who had already made a decision. That night he prayed in silence while the city slept in fear. He did not ask for protection. He did not ask for miracles. He asked to understand. At dawn, when frost covered the stones and the forest still breathed fog, Francisco got up. He adjusted his robe. He took his small wooden crucifix, and he walked towards the gates of Gubbio. Alone. Behind him, the city held its breath. No one knew of what they were about to witness. You'd be a martyrdom, or something that would change history forever. The city leader looked at him in silence. He had seen strong men die. He had buried children. He had ordered the gates closed, knowing that hunger would kill more slowly, but just as surely. And now, in front of him, he had an unarmed man talking about dialogue with the beast that had sown terror. "Father Francisco," he finally said, his voice breaking, "the best hunters did not return. The soldiers fled. That wolf does not listen to reason." Francisco did not argue. He did not try to convince with arguments. He closed his eyes again, praying. No one spoke in the room. Only the crackling of the fire could be heard, and the wind hitting the windows. When he opened his eyes, his decision was already made. "Tomorrow at dawn, I will go to the forest." A murmur of horror ran through the room. "Go with armed men," it pleaded. "Take spears, bows, shields. At least let them accompany you." Francisco slowly shook his head. "If I go armed, he will see an enemy. If I go with soldiers, he will see a threat, and he will respond as he always has." A heavy silence fell. "I'm not going to fight the wolf," he continued. "I am going to find the brother who suffers." Some lowered their gaze. Others crossed themselves. "That animal has killed our children," a voice shouted from the back. "He is not a brother." Francisco did not raise his voice. "Nothing is born a monster. Pain transforms. Hunger maddens. Abandonment hardens the heart, even that of a wild creature." The city leader stepped forward. "If you die, your blood will fall on our consciences." Francisco looked at him with peace. "If I die," he replied, "I will die trying to stop hatred. And that is worth more than living watching others suffer." No one knew what to say, because for the first time in weeks, someone was not speaking from fear. He was speaking from faith. And so, while the city slept locked behind its walls, a barefoot man, without a sword, without a shield, with no more protection than his trust in God, prepared to go out and meet the most feared monster in the valley, not to destroy it, but to understand it and change everything. The wolf remained motionless. It did not growl. It did not attack. It did not retreat, as if an invisible force had stopped it in mid-stride. From the walls, no one breathed. The men clenched their fists. The women covered their mouths. Some closed their eyes, convinced that the next thing would be another death. Francis slowly lowered his hand, and then he spoke. He did not shout. He did not order. He did not challenge. He spoke as one who addresses an equal. "Brother Wolf," he said in a firm voice, "in the name of Christ I ask you not to harm, neither me, nor anyone else." The animal stared at him. Its eyes, once full of fury, now seemed to struggle against something within, as if inside that beast there was a silent battle. Francis took a step forward. From above, a murmur of horror ran through the walls, but the wolf did not move. Francis continued to advance, slowly, without fear, without weapons, without human protection. "I know you have caused pain," he continued. "I know that many fear you, but I also know that you suffer." The wolf lowered its head slightly. Francis was now a few steps away from him. "Hunger drove you. Pain made you violent. You were not born a monster. You became one, through abandonment." No one in Gubbio had spoken of the wolf like this. Everyone called him a demon. Francis called him brother. Then the unthinkable happened. The wolf took a step towards Francis, not with attack, not with rage, with caution. Like a wounded creature that does not know whether to trust, Francis extended his hand, not to dominate, not to impose, to touch. And the wolf, the same one that had killed 30 people, lowered its head and allowed the contact. A soft groan escaped from its throat, not of threat, of pain. Francis then saw what no one had wanted to see: old wounds, poorly healed flesh, rusty iron embedded in its paw, human traps, prolonged pain, years of silent suffering. "Now I understand," Francis whispered. "You were not attacking out of malice. You were attacking because you were broken." From the walls, many began to cry, not out of fear, out of shame. Francis sat down in front of the wolf, like one who sits with a tired friend. "Listen to me, brother," he said. "Let us make a pact. If you promise not to harm this town anymore, I will ask that they feed you, that they take care of you, that you never go hungry again." The wolf watched him in silence. Francis extended his hand again. "If you accept, give me your paw." For an eternal second, nothing happened. And then, the wolf slowly raised its paw and rested it on the saint's hand. A pact, sealed without words. From the walls, the town burst into tears, prayer, and amazement. The monster had obeyed. The violence had subsided. Peace had begun. Francis got up. "Now come," he said. "Let us go home." And together the saint and the wolf walked towards Gubbio. The town that had lived in terror was about to witness the most difficult miracle of all, not the defeat of the enemy, but its transformation. Francisco spoke. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He did not raise his voice. His tone was serene but firm, like someone who does not argue, but understands. He called him brother. And those words crossed the air like something completely new. Francisco did not deny the damage caused. He did not justify the bloodshed. But he did something that no one had done before. He looked beyond the ferocity. He recognized the hunger that had driven him to attack. He recognized the pain that had deformed his instinct. He recognized the invisible wounds that had made him violent. "You have suffered a lot," he said, "and your suffering turned into rage. But you were not born to kill." The wolf remained still. His fangs were still bared, but his body no longer advanced. Francisco took another step. The people held their breath. "Listen to me, brother," he continued. "If you promise not to harm these people anymore, if you stop attacking their children and their animals, I promise you something in return." Francisco slowly opened his hand. "They will give you food. You will never go hungry again. You will never have to fight alone to survive again." The wind stopped. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The wolf lowered his head. For the first time, not as a dominant beast, but as a tired creature, there was an eternal instant of doubt, and then the unthinkable happened. The wolf slowly raised his front paw, the same one with which he had attacked, and gently placed it in Francisco's outstretched hand. It was not a gesture of submission. It was a gesture of agreement, a silent pact between fear and mercy. From the walls, some wept, others fell to their knees. They had witnessed something that had no human explanation. It was not force. It was not magic. It was something deeper, the power of a compassion capable of disarming even terror. Francis returned with the wolf to the city. They walked together, side by side, the barefoot saint with his worn tunic, the wolf, enormous, silent, with its head bowed. When they arrived at the gates of Gubbio, the guards hesitated. Hands trembled on the spears. Fear was etched on every face. That animal had killed their children. It had filled the city with mourning. But Francis raised his hand. "Do not fear," he said. "Today an enemy does not enter. A reconciled brother enters." The gates opened slowly. The wolf crossed the threshold without growling, without attacking, without showing fangs. The crowd recoiled at first, then fell silent. No one could believe what they saw. The monster of the valley walking peacefully through the same streets where before there was only fear. Francis spoke to the people. "This wolf has suffered. Pain made him violent. But he has promised to live in peace. Now you must also promise. Each day, a family will give him food, not scraps, not contempt, shared bread, care, compassion." There were murmurs, doubts, wounds still open. Then a mother stepped forward. She had lost her son. "If God could touch his heart, I will also try to forgive." And so began the unthinkable. For 2 years, the wolf lived in Gubbio. He walked the streets at dawn. He stopped in front of the houses. He waited. He received food. He took it carefully. He never showed aggression. The children, first from afar, and closer. Soon they were running by his side, touching his fur, laughing. The same streets that had known terror now knew peace. The wolf slept in the square, in the sun, like a silent guardian, and the people understood something profound. He had not been tamed by force. He had been healed by love. Fear turned into wonder, wonder into trust, and trust into peace. Gubbio was never the same again, because when someone dares to break the cycle of hate, they do not just change a story, they change a heart. One winter, the wolf died, not amidst screams, not amidst chases, not pierced by spears. He died old, tired, in peace. He no longer prowled the forests. He no longer bared his fangs. He walked slowly through the streets of Gubbio as one of the townspeople. The children who before could not leave their houses accompanied him until his last breath. The same families who had mourned their dead now mourned the wolf, because for years he did not attack again. He did not kill again. He did not sow fear again. He had fulfilled his pact. The town buried him with respect in blessed ground near the church, not as a beast, but as a redeemed creature. Time passed. Generations changed. The story began to seem like a legend. Until centuries later, under the floor of the church, his skeleton appeared. It was enormous, larger than normal, and in his bone there was still embedded an old rusty iron trap. The silent proof of his pain, the reason for his fury, the wound that had turned him into a monster. The story was real, and the message remains. That violence rarely stems from pure evil, but from unattended suffering. That responding to hatred with more hatred only perpetuates death. And that compassion, when it seems absurd, when it seems dangerous, is, sometimes, the only force capable of transforming the impossible. St. Francis did not defeat the wolf with weapons. He defeated him by looking him in the eyes, recognizing him as a brother, and offering him a way out. Because no one, not even the most feared, nor the most wounded, nor the most rejected, is beyond the reach of grace. Never. Saint Francis of Assisi reminds us that authentic faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision not to let fear govern. While others build walls, faith builds bridges. While the world responds with violence, faith responds with compassion. Francis did not first see a monster. He saw a wounded creature, painful, desperate. And in doing so, he transformed not only the wolf, but an entire town. Because Gubbio learned something it never forgot, that evil is not always overcome with force, that rage is not always extinguished with punishment, that even what seems irremediable can change when someone dares to love without weapons. The wolf ceased to be a threat and became a symbol. Fear stopped governing the city. The children returned to play. The doors opened. Winter lost its dominion. And it all began when a poor man without a sword, the soldiers, without human protection, decided to trust more in God than in violence. Today, centuries later, the story of the wolf of Gubbio does not speak to us of animals. It speaks to us of ourselves, of our wounds, of our fears, of our capacity to change when someone looks at us, not as enemies, but as brothers. Saint Francis of Assisi, friend of the poor, brother of all creatures, master of impossible peace, teach us to face fear not with hatred, but with love. Saint Francis of Assisi, pray for us.